Channel 1, Channel 1. All right.
Cheers. Cheers.
All right, guys. All right. Welcome. We have the main man in the building. One and only. The man of the hour. Luke, thank you for coming by.
Of course.
Give us a quick intro on you. What you getting into?
I am a podcast producer. That's how I would identify first and probably most. I, as far as at least professionally, I have a full-time day job too in the podcast industry, but I've been producing podcasts for a little under 10 years and spend a lot of time. I've produced a number of shows across a whole spectrum of genres, and I just love the medium. And you and I intersected because I'm currently producing a documentary about your brother and his journey, hopefully, to the Olympics in 2024.
I couldn't even done that better myself. No, that's really cool that you're doing all this stuff, especially like leading into the Olympic. We went to the community event that happened yesterday. What did you think about that?
It was fun. It was, we got there kind of late, and I was there early, and I got there way too early.
Yeah.
To, get a good impression. But we came back later in the evening, and they were doing like fashion shows, and I mean, it was fun. It was a good vibe. A lot of folks.
Yeah.
A lot of folks from the scene, the breaking scene, just like who for me are just familiar faces I've been watching on YouTube,
Yeah.
But, it's fun to kind of see them in just a social environment.
So this is actually really new to me too. Like the whole fashion runway thing that they were doing at the community event. Shout out to Romeo, man, and shout out to Roger, man. You guys have always been kind of like doing something in the scene that's pushing the needle. But yeah, the community event was fun. It was dope. Lots of people, familiar faces that I've seen, not only in Houston but here in Austin, really showed up, and people from out of town. So it was really fun to see that.
All over. I mean, East Coast, West Coast, there's folks from everywhere.
With some of the events that's been going on, what events have you attended this year in terms of breaking? I
started producing this documentary in July of 22, and the first event I attended was BBoys City 28 last year. So that was last September, I guess. And then I've gone, I hit up a few break-free events in Houston. I came back for nationals earlier this year, the Break for Gold USA Nationals. I attended Rad Ether that you guys put on earlier this year, and then I have started showing up when I can to the first Sunday of the month. Baby Girl and B-Girl City host a hip hop vintage flea market event.
Yeah,
in Houston, and that is a really, really great event. They've got now the Break City is happening there, the kids tournament, whatever.
Yeah,
the Beast Boogie's put on. It's a really, really great scene.
My thing is, like, I want to get Baby Girl on this show, and we will get Baby Girl on this show eventually, but she's been doing a lot in the Houston scene with the hip hop vintage, and I was kind of there since the inception, like when I first saw that she was releasing it publicly, and the audience that she kind of garnered, it was like more than just the breaking industry. It was like everyone from hip hop, like like Houston legends, like it's just insane.
Great. From what I heard, she is, I think, one of the biggest players in the breaking scene, period. Definitely Houston. I mean, Houston, I don't know if Houston would really have a scene the way it does without what she's doing with Revision, what she's doing with, the vintage flea market.
Yeah.
She's huge, man. She's so great.
So what event are you looking most forward to this upcoming year? Or actually, from the ones that you've seen so far, which one have been your favorite?
Yeah, so B-Boy City was for sure my favorite. It was the first time I had seen crew battles live. I'd seen one-on-one stuff just in clubs and whatever when I was a kid, but that was the first time, I had not been around the breaking scene for many years, and I came back, and to see, crew versus crew stuff happening, it was just so fun. And it's fun now to go back and watch all this footage that I captured a year ago when I didn't know who anybody was, and now that's all these familiar faces. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that I would,
you're in the scene,
all this person, live before. And so, it's all these folks that I'm watching. I spend all of my time now watching all these breaking events and researching and studying and interviewing everybody. And so now to realize I was capturing these familiar faces. Like a perfect example is Wicket. Wicket's involved with, he's been a huge part of the show that I'm creating and just a huge voice for me over the last several months. And to go back and watch and see all this video I've got of Wicket from last year that I didn't even know I'd captured. So
yeah, wow.
I was just shooting strangers and now they're all people I know.
Did you know that Wicket was in some of those Step Up movies and stuff like that before?
Yeah, I knew once I met Wicket for the first time at a Break Free event this past May, and I knew who he was for sure.
Yeah.
I had seen You Got Served and all that. And,
yeah.
It's funny, my two favorite B-boys from that movie, that ridiculous movie, were Wicket and Flips, and I didn't know who either of them were back then.
Yeah.
But now they've both become friends and, folks that have been on for the show.
I actually met Flips for the first time.
At Vans?
Yeah, Vans at Long Beach, and it was like so humbling to see him. Met Flips, met Ace, and this is like my first time interacting with them and actually getting to speak with them. But Flips, one of the original creators of Skill Methods, legendary crew. But the type of notes that he was giving out to us at that jam was like, it's like you can't tie any type of monetary value to it. Like it was just crazy seeing Flips there, and like now that you've like hearing that you've seen and spoken with Flips as well, like it's insane.
He was like the nicest guy too. Like we talked. I mean, I think I scheduled a 30-minute interview with him, and we talked for probably an hour and a half. We could have filled another 3 interviews with that because
wow.
He's got so much experience and such an interesting. He occupies such an interesting intersection in the scene, in my opinion, because he, like you said, he's from this legendary crew, who is, they were a huge part of like the VHS movement and stuff in the 90s, and then he has lived in this sort of entertainment, what a lot of people consider to be an exploitation of breaking. He sort of sits in that place and he just occupies such an interesting spot, I think, in the scene. And then to still be judging at Vans and things like that.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Insane.
Yeah, he's great. So
many things to go through. So, all right. So another thing. So this is actually kind of geared towards more your documentary. Actually, no. Actually, let's kind of step back a little bit. Seeing everything and how Austin has been developing, would you kind of consider Austin to be a hub for breaking?
Totally, yeah. I mean, I think anywhere where, we talked about this off mic a little bit, but Romeo Navarro and Roger Davis they've been such a consistent presence over the last 20 plus years in the scene, especially in the Texas scene, which was huge in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they were right in the middle of it, and they've just been so consistent to sort of just keep showing up, keep doing the event, even if, I'm sure there were years where that was really hard to pull off, but they have maintained such a consistent presence and made a space and a home for breaking to continue to thrive in Texas.
Yeah.
And I just don't think you would have, I don't think you would have Moy and Break Free and that scene in Houston and everywhere without Romeo and Roger Davis and Omar and those guys, killing it in Austin and San Antonio. Obviously Omar had a massive presence for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's just got kind of a global presence now. But.
Yeah, Omar's face is kind of like the face of Texas. Like I kind of feel like it turned into like, anytime anyone looked at Texas, they'd like think of Omar. Yeah. Like, But now you've had like, yeah.
I look back at all this stuff I shot last year, and I have such respect for Omar because, I know how hard he's worked inside and outside the breaking scene, but like to know that he sort of occupies, like you said, he's sort of the face of Texas breaking in a lot of people's eyes, and he's the face of Red Bull in a lot of people's eyes. And the shots that I have of him and the memories I have of him at B-Boy City last year were either behind the scenes working, like not even near the stage working to make sure everything flowed right, or he's out there actually sweeping the dance floor. And I'm like, man, you don't expect that from somebody who's, such a kind of a legend. And then, they're just doing the grunt work.
Yeah. Like, and it's kind of like, that's how the whole scene is. I even noticed that even at Vans, they like spent like 20 minutes wiping the floor, and it was like nothing but legends wiping the floor. Yeah. Wow. It's just, so it's just really cool to see. But in terms of everything that you've seen in the breaking community, what are some of the things that you hate and what are some of the things that you love?
for me, there's a lot of things to love. There are
Yeah.
a couple things I can think of to hate. And I mentioned some of this to you off mic, like when I watch all these international events, some of the MCs for the events just drive me crazy. The way that they announce every dancer the same way. I mean, it makes me crazy. Commentators for those events make me crazy. They're just not good.
Yeah.
So, I don't mean that as a blanket statement. You've got folks that are really, really talented and doing it well, but they seem to not be the ones rising, to the position for, at least on that like Olympic channel stuff. So
yeah.
But things I love, one of the things I've shared with a couple folks, there was a break free event I went to in May of this year, the same event where I met Wicket. And, it was kids, it was adults, it was all 1v1 stuff. And there were moments where you would have, I remember seeing B-Boy Cullen from Havakoro battling like a 5-year-old kid. Like legit, they got, placed against each other in a battle.
Yeah.
And at no point did DJ, did the judges, did Cullen, did the MC, did anybody treat that kid as though he was just a kid and they, just cued out on the dance floor. They took him seriously.
Yeah.
And that's just something you don't see in most sports. And I think that's so important that like you let these kids be taken seriously from the time they are young, and they grow into Cullen and they grow into Marcus and they grow into these B-boys who are just coming up now.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen some of the other kid B-boys, the ones that
for sure.
10.
I've had several on the show. I mean, I've interviewed Flips and Wilson and Kid Break and I mean those. I mean Kid Break, I'd put him up against anybody.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. But to see them taken seriously at such a young age and to not be sort of condescended or patronized, and the crowd even took them seriously, and also they get to learn to lose in that way because they didn't just win because they're kids. Yeah, which is what you would see in a lot of spaces. You let the kid win, but it's
impressive when you see like a younger kid of that age like have the stature and like some of the skill sets of someone who has like 30 years of experience or 20 years of experience. And, they're doing all these crazy tricks. Like they can fly now. Like,
it is great.
It's like, you have no other option but to take them seriously. Yeah. And if you don't, well, you just might lose. And I think it might be more of an ego thing. You really might just lose a lot of you might feel like you lost a lot of your credibility losing to a kid. So it's like, I have to take this person seriously.
Yeah. But even like kids who aren't talented, or even just people who like, I don't want to say not talented, but they just aren't experienced. Yeah. I remember I was at Nationals this year in Austin and was standing around on one of the ciphers, and you had Gravity and you had Rascal Randy and you had Sonny, and I mean you had like El Ninos in that circle. There was people who were like legends. Yeah. But then you also got, I remember this one guy who, he's not anybody on the scene. He's just kind of this big, kind of a chunky guy, and he was clearly not really a great B-boy, like a pretty entry level. He'd get out there, and he would do a little bit of top rock and this, and it was it was ugly, but like everybody just kept hyping him up, and they took him seriously. They didn't let him feel just because he lacked the experience that they had or lacked the athleticism that they had, like he was any less a part of the scene. That's I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is the inclusive nature that I see in the breaking scene is just beautiful to me. I mean, it's what the world needs more of. So.
Man, that's dope. Man, you giving some real answers. So can you give us a little bit more commentary on what you're doing with the documentary?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I guess you can say, but you don't want to say. I don't want you to give your secrets.
Yeah. No,
but
I'm happy to share.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been fascinated and in love with the breaking scene since I was 4 years old. I was 4 years old when Beat Street and breaking came out, and Flashdance was still new. It was like very much the rise in mainstream culture, or pop culture was the rise of breaking. I was 4 years old, man, and I loved it. I thought it was so cool. I thought Turbo from breaking was like the coolest human being on the planet.
Yeah.
So I just grew up loving it, got into it again in high school, and was connected to Ryan Lambert, B-Boy Gypsy from Dallas-Fort Worth area, just sort of knew him. And then, got out of it again, but, and I was never a B-Boy. I was sort of around it. I was just near the culture and fascinated by the culture a lot. And, when Breakin was announced in the Olympics, I guess it was late 2020, and I heard about it. I was like, man, at that point I'd been producing podcasts for several years, and I was like, there's a story to tell here that I want to tell. There's something really compelling to me about this art form that was born out of despair. I mean, out of tremendous poverty in the Bronx, and that poverty being the result of systemic racism, and it came out of this really ugly, something beautiful that came out of this really ugly time.
Yeah,
these really ugly circumstances, and is now about to appear on the most revered athletic stage in the history of the world. That's incredible to me. There's something remarkable about, especially when I compare it to the stories that I usually hear about Olympians, that these kids who, had the world sort of handed to them. You hear about these ice skaters that have been training since they were 5 years old, and they had, their whole life was ice skating. They're very wealthy, and
some knows
come from a place of privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see this form that has united people around the world, many of whom are coming from difficult circumstances, some sort of struggle, to see it now on that same stage, there's something really fascinating there. And I was like, I got to tell the story. And so Ryan, who I had known from high school, I reached out to him first, and he sort of connected me back. He's like, here's who you need to talk to. You need to talk to Romeo. You need to talk to Omar. And he started to sort of connect me with these people he was involved with, because he's connected to all the Breakin' for Gold USA movement. And so as I dug in, Marlon was somebody I knew also. I interviewed Ryan, Omar, and Marlon were the first 3 interviews I did, and got such good advice from them about how to approach this. I forget, it was either Omar or Marlon that really encouraged me, like, you need to center this on someone. This needs to be not just, people have heard the story of hip hop. They've heard, especially in 2022, been told 1,000 times.
So many times.
Yeah. So they sort of motivated me to make something that was more character driven and like really follow a story. And Jeffro, your brother, was sort of the first person to come to mind for me, because 1, he's local to Houston where I am. 2, he's phenomenal. 3, the thing that honestly really appealed to me was that he's Haitian. And I have a long history with Haiti and a deep love for Haitians, and I always need more Haitians in my life. And so,
hey man, well, we got a couple of more, man.
Yeah,
this might fit with the whole band.
So that's what started our relationship off, and I've spent the last year really following his journey closely. He and I get together on the regular, and he's just sharing kind of his whole life story with me. And the series hopefully will release leading up to the Olympics. So late spring, early summer of 24, we'll start releasing it. And roll it out leading up to the Olympics, where hopefully Jeffro will be present and on a podium.
Man, he said it perfectly, guys. I don't think there's any other better way to say it. I actually do want to pick your brain a little bit more about the Haiti stuff. But actually, I forgot to tell you what I hate and what I love about the scene. I think some of the things that I hate, I think it's more correlated to some of the criterias that they sometimes might overlook. I don't think there's too many criterias in terms of how we categorize what do we constitute as a successful round in breaking. So that kind of goes into, we see the power, we see the footwork, we see top rock and whatnot, but I think there's, a multitude of other showmanship qualities like stage presence, performance, entertainment. I think those things kind of get overlooked a lot.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah. And that's just kind of on the side of things that I wish I could change to kind of like make it a little bit more, I don't know how to say this, but it would make it a little bit more of a stats-based thing. And also, I wish that we could change the judging system to a point where we can have the judges not only just say who I think won, but maybe go round by round. Because at the end of the day, whenever you look at, okay, judges 1, 2, 3, and then you see all 10 judges point one direction, it kind of doesn't tell you the story of whether or not you're like, oh, well, this person kind of took round 2, this person took round 1. So it'd be interesting to see some of the judges point in terms of, okay, round 1, this person took it, and like we only assign the first judge to that or something. Maybe, I don't know. And also another thing, it kind of goes into some of the elements. If we were to like categorize like everything that the dancer had done, like we'd say power, musicality, style, and this is all correlated to each of the judges. So each of the judges is responsible for deciding one, flavor, one style or element of the dance. It'd be interesting to have each of the judges only give their, judging criteria based off of, one of these stats. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. That way you'd at least be able to say, all right, well, yeah, at the end of the day, this other person took the round, but I kind of want to see who took the styles round and who took the stage presence. So that's something that I wish I could see a little bit more.
Yeah, even in like when you look at like the Trivium and the judging systems where you do get to see round by round who voted where. I mean, I know the information is out there. You can see not just how they voted, but what, where they actually like moved the scale. Forget, maybe on the And8 website or something, you can actually get into like the details of that voting.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there was a way to visualize that in real time, at the event, so that you don't have to go look it up on the internet. And disagree.
It'd be interesting to also have one of those ESPN re-record highlight rails where, judges can actually go through and, okay, I don't have to just make an instantaneous decision based off of something I just seen for 2 seconds. Maybe I can record and go over what I just saw in terms of the highlights and give a little bit more of a educated guess, or not guess, but educated judgment based off of what I just seen. That'd be interesting.
That's one of the things that always gets me too, is that, your judges are they're only seeing things from one side. I feel like so much of what happens live in these events is camera facing or crowd facing.
Yeah.
Like, there's some of these little subtle nuanced things that judges don't see. And that feels like a problem to me. It almost feels like you should have judges all the way around the stage to kind of get the whole scope of, because I'm sure things look different. I mean, even like the Vans event, I watched the Vans event, I was watching it live on Instagram as it was happening a few weeks ago. And then to go back and see the like the stance footage, I guess, was from the other side of the stage.
Right. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like each side of it is like, oh, that looked way less impressive or way more impressive.
Yeah.
From the other angle.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that I always think is interesting.
That's actually pretty interesting, because I hadn't really thought about that type of criteria being kind of put or implemented into the whole judging system.
Yeah.
Can you kind of getting different visual perspectives on what someone's round looked like from this angle versus the other one. That's really dope. Man, I told y'all today Luke was going to be dropping some bombs and some knowledge on you guys, and he really is. It's really interesting to hear your preference and perspective on the whole dance and seeing how that impacts everyone.
Yeah.
Actually, so with the documentary, when, what, where? So are you planning on trying to, are you planning on traveling with Jeffro and maybe going to some of these other like bigger events?
I would love it. It would be, I mean, that would be the dream for me. So currently, the whole thing's being produced. I own a small podcast network, and it's currently, there it is, the waterfall.
Yeah.
It's currently just coming out of my pocket, and there's only so much I can do. I also have a full-time job and a wife, and a wife at
I feel that
in Houston. So the part of the process that we're in right now, we're pitching the show around to some larger networks looking for a partnership. Who knows if that'll happen? Mm-hmm. If something comes through where there can be some funding for the show, then absolutely, that'd be a dream. Especially if, depending on how as we record this, the World Championship's happening, and depending on how that turns out, the OQS process January to June of 24 may be really vital for Jeffro.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I would love it. I would love to actually get out there and attend some of these events and get media passes for them so I can get close. But who knows, man? It's one of those things at this point I've decided, like, I'm going to make the show either way, because I really think that the Breakin has a story that deserves to be told.
Yeah.
And to be told beautifully. I think someone's going to tell it. I want to make sure it's told beautifully because I have such a deep love for the culture, even as an outsider to it, as an outsider to the scene. So
yeah, but I'd definitely say you've gotten into circles with pretty prominent people and influential people
who were heroes, of mine since childhood, which is amazing. To grow up with B Street and then be interviewing Ken Swift is wow.
That's insane. Wait, you didn't interview Ken Swift?
Yeah.
When?
It's like 6 weeks ago, 3-4 weeks.
What?
A little while back. Yeah, but he's one of several that like has just made himself a bit. Flowmaster's another one. Like I've known Flowmaster, I've been seeing him in music videos since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And so then to be in conversation with him, Wicked, we talked about like, these are people who they've been figures. I've known who they were for many, many years. And, add to the list of likes about the scene or loves about the scene is how accessible people have made themselves.
So another thing is, have you had the opportunity to talk to, I guess, interview someone like Romeo, Roger, and maybe even Cross One?
I've not sat down with any of them. I've emailed with all of them. Well, okay. I've not emailed with Cross yet.
Okay.
Cross is on my list. I did an interview last week, just a couple of days ago, actually, with Steve Graham from Silverback.
Okay. Yeah.
Cross is a big part of the narrative, I think, as far as how did we get here, how did breaking get where it is as far as the Olympic
right
path. And so he's on my list. I'm gonna try to connect with him.
No, that's dope.
Yeah.
Man, you're putting in work. That's all I gotta say. Yeah, but we gotta put in that sound effect because like literally you're dropping bombs. I don't think a lot of people understand like some of the stuff that you're putting into this. You're putting a lot into this culture.
A lot, man. It's I told you a couple of days ago that like in the last 6 weeks, I've probably done 50 plus interviews with people from the scene. And
yeah.
We're talking like 45 minutes per interview. So on average, I mean, it is a lot of hours. And then to go back and like, transcribe everything and, really sort through how is this narrative, what is the narrative arc of this story and how do I tell it in a way that's honest, that's true to, I don't want to romanticize something. I don't want to make something that the scene hears and just says like, yeah, that's not us. I want to capture what's actually really beautiful about this. And it's my first time doing documentary work. I've produced, like I said, across a whole spectrum of genres, but this is the first time I've done documentary work. And so.
Yeah. And it's an audio documentary,
and it's
right?
An audio documentary. Yes.
Yeah.
Very visual medium. So it's interesting, but I'm up for the challenge. I mean, I love, like I said, I love this medium and I love this form enough.
Have you faced any challenges with that? Knowing that it is an audio documentary, but at the same time, you're like, man, there's this footage that I have of me talking to this guy, but I really wish I could have that as part of my platform.
It's challenging to think about how is this going to be scripted out in a way that is not exclusive to people who already know the breaking scene.
Yeah.
I want it to get their stamp of approval for sure.
Yeah.
But they need way less explanation, way less guidance than someone who's not familiar with the scene. Because the thing about it is like Jeff Rowe's life, your life, breaking's story, all of those things are beautiful. Whether people should be able to resonate with the sort of the human story.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not they understand the sport or the art form or whatever. And so, that's the challenge, is just thinking like, how do I script this in a way that honors what it is without over explaining, but without under explaining. You and I talked some off mic about one of the big holes that I see as an outsider to the scene is that there's not really an on-ramp for there to be a fan base, like a true fan base. You look at the NBA and every NBA fan is not a basketball player. You look at the breaking
That's
scene,
true.
Most breaking fans are breakers or former breakers.
That's true.
To the scene. And so I really want to help create that on-ramp for, I want to be able to like sit down with a friend for beer and be like, who's your favorite B-boy?
Right.
What crew are you like loyal to?
And I know it's hard, like whenever you're in some of these circles and some people don't correlate with the whole breaking scene and you're like watching, you're like, oh man, did you just see that? And you're like, you look at them with a smile, they're just like stone faced. Like,
I think people are always impressed by the spectacle of it, especially of like power. People
definitely
watch Super Kicks and be like, Jesus, that guy is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But like, not as many people can look at Jeffro, for example, and see some of like the nuanced musicality and see that he's hitting every beat of, you know, of a song and appreciate what's happening. I compare it a lot to MMA. I got into MMA as a fan several years ago, 20 years ago, and I got in like anybody else. I wanted to see a big knockout. I wanted to see violence. I wanted to see, you know, I wanted the spectacle of it. But the longer I stuck around, and props to Joe Rogan, who I respect in very few other circles outside of MMA, as an MMA commentator, he did such a phenomenal job of helping me understand what I was watching that I came to be a true fan, where I could appreciate the ground game. I could appreciate, you know, what was happening. It made me fall in love with judo and jiu-jitsu and these more nuanced, less big knockout type forms. And I think breaking needs the same thing. We need that commentary. We need that on-ramp to like welcome a fan base in so that they understand what they're watching.
Yeah.
And without having to be practitioners of the form.
I agree with that too.
I can't do a 6-step to save my life. Like, I'm never going to be that guy that like really, you know, is like practicing this form, but I love it. And I want there to be more people like me. I want there to be space for people like me to come and just love it. You know?
That's really cool that you have that type of, you know, that you see that type of need within the scene. And I think just like with most of the things that you see with Rad, I think we're all trying to like captivate a larger audience and trying to see how we can extend that past just like the people who are already in the scene.
Yeah.
So hearing it from someone like you like means that, wow, like that is something that we truly need. And we're kind of like moving in that direction. Yeah. Especially with it going into the Olympic.
Yeah. That's been an interesting part of my process, was like feeling so much like an outsider to the scene and the challenges that presented as far as like accessing, you know, some of these bigger personalities or better known folks. That felt really challenging in the beginning. But on the flip side of that coin is that like approaching this as an outsider gives me the ability to see something that I think you can't see from the inside. Not as easily, not as clearly. And so, and as someone who loves the culture and wants to, you know, I don't want to exploit it. I want to amplify it. I want to just make it available I want to show people how beautiful this thing is.
Yeah.
Who aren't already in it. And so,
man, look, I really wish you would have attended the Birmingham World Games.
Yeah, me too. The first interview I did for the show was like a week and a half after World Games.
Wow. Yeah. So my Chaz, you know, Chaz, our co-host, he actually went out with me, and we went out with a few other people. But going to the Birmingham World Games, the breaking category actually sold out. So no more people being brought into that still factory or whatever. That venue was one of the largest venues that I've seen used for breaking, and it was completely filled. And like seeing the new audience, people, you know, just a new audience and a new vibe of people who've never really been in circles with breaking, but now was seeing it on a larger stage and being just very impressed with it. Really showed like a lot of some of the characteristics that you're explaining, like seeing some of those audience base from other industries come into breaking and showing like a very great big appreciation for it.
I was in Denver like a month ago, and I did a tour. I went down to Colorado Springs and toured the USOPC training facility where the Olympic athletes all train, where Team USA has done a training camp there. I think they've got another one coming up. And, I did a tour, and I was chatting with this girl who works there, and she's training to be she's a triathlete. And but I asked her, I was like, were you here when Team USA breaking, you know, came for that training camp? And she was. And she went on and on as someone who had never probably seen breaking in her life.
Wow.
About how all of the athletes there were just like watching Team USA breaking walk by, and they'd be like, oh my God, that's got to be the break dancers. And, you know, they went and watched this mock battle they did, and they were just going on and on about it. Everybody I met there went on and on about just how cool the breaking team was, and just that, you know, it's one of those things that like when you see it, you will love it.
Yeah. So
gotta get it in front of people.
So for you, who was the biggest starstruck person that you've met in breaking? Like someone you're like, wow, like never thought I'd meet this person, or at the same time, I'm a big fan of this person and what they're currently doing or what they've historically done.
It would have to be Ken Swift. I mean, I just, you know, Ken Swift has been a figure in my life who I've known of and known, I've known him. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've watched Beach Street in my life. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot in 2023, let alone the rest of his life. And it's just one of those movies I come back to a lot. And Ken Swift is easily one of, my favorite B-boys from that, the big, battle scene. And so he was one. Man, I'm trying to think of who all, I've talked to a lot of folks. Flips was that way.
Yeah.
And just really impressed again with just sort of like how regular a guy he was, and how, just kind and normal. You sort of expect people to be a little condescending when they're, when they live like at this platform or whatever, but no one in the breaking scene has been that way. And then I've emailed back and forth with a bunch of folks who, same thing, that like, I never would have imagined being connected to these people.
Yeah.
Some of the best interviews I've done though have been folks who, I did an interview this past week with a guy named Kingsbridge Rich. Do you know him?
Kingsbridge Rich? No.
Yeah. So he is a B-boy, but like that's not really his. He just started a show called My Bronx Story, where he's just talking about his life growing up in the Bronx and like what it was actually like being. He grew up with all these pioneers and was very, very present and had firsthand encounters with the whole hip hop scene as it was coming to life. And so interviewing him, I interviewed Technique from Skill Methods, and he's another guy that like he's just so. He has so much to say, he has so much good to offer. And he's so articulate in the way that he sort of describes the problems in the scene.
Yeah. So
he's not a cynic, it's not that he's like, I think it would be easy to confuse that for cynicism, but like, he's still hopeful. He still loves breaking. He still loves the scene. And that's why he speaks out on the things he speaks out on.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Judo, we talked about. Was one of my favorite conversations I've ever had.
Judo is an amazing person.
Just want to hang out with him.
Yeah.
On the regular. B-Girl Mel was one that she was.
Where'd you meet Mel?
Wicked connected me to Mel, and we had a remote interview. And the man, she has just got so much good to offer, and she's one of those people that's like really done her work on her own sort of self-knowledge and healing from trauma and whatever, and she brings all of that to the scene in such a positive way. She's another one. I just could have talked to her. I would love to just have a regular therapy session with her. So.
It'd be interesting to see you have a conversation with someone like DJ Khaled, because he used to be a breakdancer.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he used to breakdance.
The image in my mind right now.
Which is the craziest thing, because when I learned of the news, I was like, DJ Khaled he doesn't remind me of any type of dancer per se, but kind of seen him go into the role of producing and making music.
Yeah, he's a killer producer.
Like, so
huge personality. Yeah, and Pauly Shore was one of those.
Yeah,
Pauly Shore was a B-boy.
Wow,
when he was young. That's crazy to me, but yeah.
Wow. Man, I had something else that I had on my mind that I wanted to tell you. And man, I just feel like my mind's going in a million different places. Maybe it's a drink.
Ask you one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, we've talked a lot about your brother and his Olympic journey. I'm so curious what that's like to be, this is your little brother. Granted, y'all are very close in age, but like you both coexist in the scene, in the same crew. You've had a lot of the same experiences, and he's on that path. I'm just curious what that experience is like for you. Is there any like, I wish I was doing that? Is there any?
It's a good question.
What is that like for you?
For me, like, all right, I got to bring this all the way back to like high school, because for me, I think all of us are very competitive, and athleticism out the roof. Like any of us could be track stars. We can do any of this stuff. It feels that way. Mm-hmm. For me, I don't feel any type of, what's the word? Like not jealousy or enviousness. It's just like, it's more of an appreciation to say like, look, we got someone in the circle. Let's just keep pushing him until, he can become someone that like he can become someone in the scene that, that we want. We just want someone there that represents us, and I think he's been doing that very well. in his own right and his own nature. So, yeah.
So this might be a hot take for your show. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but I'm curious.
Okay.
When you look at the sort of field of competition for him between now and August 10th of 2024, who do you think are going to be the biggest hurdles for him to overcome? What B-boys is like, that's going to be a problem?
So, all right. So the biggest B-boys we have are people like Victor. I think that's going to be a big hurdle because Victor getting into the Olympic, there's only like 2 spots or something like that. So there's Victor, Gravity, and then outside of the US, I would say people like Shiga Kicks. And man, who else? Because honestly, I think Jeffro is very capable as a dancer, and I think he does a lot of conditioning with some of the programs and things that he's created to keep himself up with the challenge. A lot of people, I don't think they look at the conditioning side the same way that he does. So he looks at dieting, he does the exercises and some of the physical therapy. Like his stats in all direction have uniformly been expanding, like almost equally. But I don't think a lot of people have what he has, which is the musicality side of it, the showmanship, stage presence, entertainment value. These are all things that we grew up in high school learning and making that more of a predominant thing for our style. So a lot of people don't top rock, for instance, and it shows. It shows when you see someone like Jeffro top rock, or you see someone, just anyone else. You can definitely tell the difference. The silhouette is different, and what he brings to the game is a little bit different than what a lot of people is, and that's the unique factor that I think a lot of people need in order to like become or stand out in that way.
He's also got such a likability. I think that I don't know that Jeffro has a lot of haters. That's what I've heard of. Everybody I've talked to is so, such a fan of him and of Rad. I mean, I told you that off mic that like the scene loves y'all. The scene loves Rock All Day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And Jeffro specifically, man, I've got a lot of folks who, they go on and on about he's the one. He's the one to watch. And so which is fun for me because I just really like him. I just think as I've gotten to know him, like I don't just like his story. I like him as a person. He's a likable human being.
Yes.
He's kind, he makes time, he's I give him a hard time sometimes because like if I shoot him a text, there's no telling when I'm gonna hear back. It could be but he never leaves it unanswered. Always make sure that he checks it. He checks every text and he comes back, and it takes him some time, but like he's always going to get back. He's always going to like be really thorough about making sure that people feel seen and known, and so it's hard not to root for him.
So what would you do if he didn't answer your text like for 6 months, and then you're like, oh yeah, my bad, I was busy?
I mean, I know he's busy. I know he's saved for the Olympics.
Yeah.
The last thing that I want to do with it is to put my project ahead of a thing that inspired my project. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be an interruption or a disruption to what is rightfully his first priority.
Yeah.
The show is my first priority, but it's still secondary to what I know is more important. I'd much rather him make the Olympics and me not get to make a show than me make a show that hindered him in some way.
So we spoke about this off camera for a little bit, but what's your experience with trying to buy a ticket to the Paris Olympics? Are you going?
I want to. My wife and I really want to go. And, there was all this news about it. It's sold out like in 24 hours.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 hours.
Yeah, it was quick. And I looked, this is probably 6 weeks ago now. I was just like, I'm just going to see. And there were tickets available. And they were like, the cheapest tickets I think I found were $400 or $500 a piece.
Wow.
And that was for one day. That was just to go to the B-Boys on August 10th.
What?
B-Girls were August 9th.
And I don't mean to interject, but was that the regular or the initial MSRP price of those tickets?
Buying it from the Olympic.
Wow.
Official site, whatever.
So you have your plane ticket, then you have the $500 ticket.
It was going to be several $1,000s to make it happen.
Wow.
But I talked to my wife. We were like, let's do it. Let's go. Let's make that our vacation. We'll go celebrate our anniversary because our anniversary is actually August 9th. And so couple weeks later, I went back and there was no tickets to be found.
Man,
Yeah, I keep
sorry.
hoping that they'll do another release or something, that they're just like releasing them in batches, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I told you I even looked into like, what would it take to get media credentials? And you have to apply like 2 years in advance or something. I mean, it was like, it may have even been 2021 that you had to have applied for the 2024 Olympics.
And it's crazy at that time because everyone was thinking about COVID.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, it's the end of the world. We don't know if tomorrow's going to happen.
Already watching for like, okay, let's see if breaking's going to be at LA in 2028. And I'm going to go ahead and like put in for credentials now.
Yeah.
It's a much less expensive trip. So
it's a good idea. With what's actually coming up with, well, actually the LA Olympics, do you think, because apparently they had the Olympics in the States maybe 20 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I heard that.
Like Atlanta was 96.
But for breaking, apparently it's been in the Olympics once before.
So here's what I know. I know that in 1984, Lionel Richie, the Olympics were in LA. Lionel Richie did like an opening show, and he had, I think it was the New York City Breakers behind him. And so that was technically the first time breaking ever was in the Olympics, although it was not, obviously a discipline in the Olympics. And then I know that there have been events that were called the Breaking Olympics. I've never heard of breaking as we know it being in the international event of the Olympics, but I know it was highlighted in 84, which I just think is wild that 40 years later we're going to see it as a discipline. So
let's see. I had actually a few questions about what it was like living in Haiti. What made you move to Haiti, and what was it like at the time when you went to Haiti? So what year did you get there, and then what was it like?
My first trip to Haiti was in 1999. It's funny to talk about it now looking back and the sort of growth that I've experienced as a person. What I would say now, the reason I went was a white savior complex, but like, I didn't know that at the time. What I saw, I dropped out of college and moved to St. Louis. I was taking part in this, like, it was a ministry internship program. And the first 2 weeks of that, they took us to Haiti, and we were staying in this orphanage. And that was just such a time of transition for me in life, trying to figure out, like, what am I doing? I left college because I felt the higher calling to something. And I fell in love with this one kid in the orphanage named Smith Joseph. And I made the all-time rookie mistake of, we'd spent 2 weeks with these kids, 10 days, something like that. And as our truck was pulling out of the orphanage to go to the airport to fly us back to the U.S., through a translator, I told this kid, I'm going to convince my parents to adopt you. And if they won't, I'm going to move back, because I felt such a deep connection to this kid.
Yeah.
And so it was, it's just the most ignorant thing to say to a human being. And obviously my parents, they were brand new empty nesters. They weren't looking to adopt a child from a third world country and who didn't speak English. And he was 9 years old. Anyway.
So, I mean, you had your heart in the right place, though.
Yeah. Oh, well, great intentions, but, and it's led to one of the deepest friendships in my life. We're still friends to this day, but, I was 19, he was 9, and that was in June of 1999. And so when I realized they weren't doing it and I didn't know what I was doing in my life, I was like, I'm moving to Haiti. So I went back to Haiti in January of that next year, kind of coordinated with the administrator of this orphanage for me to move there. And then May 1st of 2000, I hopped on a plane and I went and lived in this orphanage the plan was to be there for 2 years.
And how long did you stay?
I was actually there for 15 months because funding just got really challenging.
But that's a long time.
It was a long time. And the first several months of that was, there weren't any other Americans living at the orphanage. So it was just me and 50 or so Haitian kids and a Haitian staff. And so I learned Creole really quickly. And I would say I was conversational after a month and fluent after 4. And
what made you pick up on the language so fast? Like, how did you learn it so fast? I guess being around a lot of people helps with that.
Helped for sure. But there was a guy who had grown up in the orphanage, and he was 26 years old. He lived outside the orphanage walls. And, in his sort of quest to like build a life for himself and overcome poverty. He had attempted to write a Creole course, to teach Americans Creole. And he was, this flimsy little book. He probably had one copy of it. Anyway, he offered to teach me, and I said, all right, that's great. I would love it. And so he spoke some English and really broke English, but he started coming over to the house in the orphanage where I lived every day and would sit with me for 3 hours doing intense study. And it drove me crazy. I mean, he wore me out because he would say something and I felt like I was making the exact same sounds he was, and he would correct me and he would correct me. And it was just brutal.
Yeah, I get that now still.
We did that for a month, and I was conversational for a month. And from there, it came easy, And so I'm so thankful for him. His name is Felix Noel, and he died, unfortunately, about 2 weeks before I moved home.
Wow.
Crushed me. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that's where I picked it up. And then it was just like being a single kid, and white kid who you go walk around in the city as a white guy in Haiti by yourself. People are going to
run up to you.
Yeah, they're going to start a conversation.
Yeah.
I got robbed on the street one day by this guy.
What? Yeah. So that was actually another question for you. I wanted to ask you, what's the craziest thing happened to you while you're in Haiti?
Yeah, this is it. I was walking home. I had, all right, so it's 2000. Maybe it's 2001 at this point. And, the internet is still pretty young, certainly in Haiti. Cell phones weren't really a thing yet. And so you would go to an internet cafe. That's how you would go get online. And I would go and you'd pay for an hour of time. And it probably cost 50 cents in US dollars. I mean, it was very inexpensive. I had a girl that I was just crazy about back home. I actually got to talk to her online, which never happened. I'm in this great mood. This is my wife now, by the way.
Okay. Shout out.
Yeah. I'm like just feeling good. I'm like, I'm just going to walk back to the orphanage. And that's, walking. I live in the city of Cap Haitian, which is it's a coastal town on the northern coast. And you sort of walk around.
It's beautiful.
Coast. You been there?
I've seen pictures of it, and I've seen videos, and my parents always talked about it.
Oh man, it's the best. I love that place. And so I was like, I'm just gonna walk home. I'm in a great mood. I stopped by the bank. I deposited, or I cashed a check. That's how I would get money out. There was one guy there that would cash American checks, and so I had 50 good in one pocket, which is at that point was about $1.25.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my entire month of financing in the other pocket that I had just left the bank with. And
wow.
And I'm walking through the heart of town. There had just been a massive rain. And so I'm walking on this little tiny, 4-inch curb, because I don't want to walk in this water past all these shops. And I hear this guy come up behind me, and in perfect English, he tells me to give him my money. And I turn around, and he robbed me entirely in English. And I responded entirely in Creole. It had to be the weirdest scene for anybody watching, is like this white guy speaking perfect Creole and this Haitian speaking perfect English.
Yeah.
And he had a cast on one arm and his other arm behind his back. He told me he had a gun. And I did not believe for a second that he had a gun. But what I didn't want is for him to hit me with that cast and me fall in that muddy water. And so I told him I pulled that 50 good out of my pocket. I was like, this is all I got. I said, this is just for a cab ride home. And he took it. And little did he know I had like $250.
Yeah. Luckily. Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy, man. He wound up at some point in the conversation, I guess I mentioned that I lived at the orphanage. And so he showed up at the orphanage the next day, beating down our gate, wanting drugs, and, because we had a pharmacy.
Wow.
It was crazy, man. But yeah, I got robbed entirely.
Wow.
In Creole. It's crazy.
Wow. What the heck?
Yeah, man. That's how it was. But that wasn't that. I don't want to give people the impression that that's what it was like in Haiti.
No, it definitely wasn't. But you said he had a cast on the other arm?
Yeah.
Like a broken arm?
Yeah. It turns out he had been deported from the U.S. He lived in Miami and was deported multiple times. He was just a problem kind of everywhere he went.
So how'd you get to know that information from him?
Because by the time that happened, there was an American family also living in orphanage. He was the administrator, and he went to the police to file a report. And what's funny is that guy was also at the police station, and he was filing a report on me saying that I'd stepped on his shoe. I don't know why he would go to the police. This guy was crazy, but I'd stepped on his shoe, and that's why all this happened.
Wow.
Which is insane. But the police they knew who he was, and they told David, the guy that I was living there with, they're like, yeah, he's just a addict.
So with your time in Haiti at the time, let's say 1999, 2000.
Yeah.
Do you and you've been back recently? No,
I haven't been in. It's probably been 5 or 6 years now.
Oh, so I'd say that's recent.
Many trips, yeah. I mean, after I moved home, I would make 1 or 2 trips a year for years. Yeah, so
that's pretty big.
spent a lot of time.
I'm surprised you did that because of the current state of Haiti and what's going on.
It's different, man. It's, when I was there, a lot of what you see too, the way that Haiti is portrayed in the news is historically has not been remotely accurate.
Right.
People are describing what they see in Port-au-Prince. Port-au-Prince is the capital. Port-au-Prince is where the government is sort of all centralized. And yeah, there have been a lot of problems there, but that is not what the rest of the country, that's not at all how the rest of the country is. But that's the stuff that's newsworthy. Somebody gets killed, you want to put it on the news, or somebody gets kidnapped, whatever. But like, that is not the heart of that country. And when I was there, it was in a bit of a political, we were sort of between presidents, and there was elections and revotes and all this stuff that happened while I lived there. But, you just sort of learn to navigate it. I've been in the middle of a number of, how it would be reported here was riots in Haiti.
They say that a lot, yeah.
But, it's actually not what it is. It's very organized. It's like, you just know, hey, on Monday, they're going to be protesting. And yes, they're burning cars, they're burning tires in the streets and stuff, but it's like organized. Everybody knows you just don't go out that day. Like, don't try to go anywhere. Or if you do, just be aware that it's going to take longer. It's not how people make it sound. And in a place like that, where there is such tremendous corruption, it's the only way for the people's voice to be heard. And so you understand it. You don't resent them for it. I never, with very few exceptions, I never felt unsafe.
Yeah.
Today, it would be really hard to go back. Right?
Yeah.
Things are actually really bad right now.
Yeah. So even at that time when, you're kind of explaining that, you felt really safe at the time. But back then, Haiti, would you say like everything was a lot different? Like it was cleaner, like the country ran a lot better?
That was the thing, like when 12 Janvier, which was the big earthquake in 2010, when that happened and the world really saw Haiti for the first time, what they saw was like complete and utter destruction.
Yeah.
They were devastated by it. It actually didn't look that different to my eyes from what I've experienced. It's just like, no, y'all just have never looked at it because it's tremendous poverty and it was hard to look at. But like now that there's an event that you can tie it to, you're willing to look. But like it was not a clean place. It was not, sanitary in any way. I mean, the through the heart of Cap Haitian, there is a river that's, some of the dirtiest water on the planet.
Yeah.
And you will see people and animals bathing in it. You'll see them getting their drinking water from it, their cooking water from it. It's wild. But at no place is that, it's incredibly sad. And it's funny, this kind of brings me back to the documentary, because one of the things that I experienced that was so transformative for me in Haiti was the spirit of the people there was one of joy and one of celebration, and it sort of looked in the face of the despair in which it existed, and it said, I'm still hopeful, I'm still joyful. I can't take that. And that is exactly the story that I want to tell at Breakin. When I looked at Breakin coming out of the Bronx and the racism that like fueled poverty that birthed all of hip hop, but especially with breaking, it was, to me, at the heart of that culture is celebration. And it is saying like what greater act of rebellion is there than to look in the face of your oppressors and say like, I'm still celebrating. I'm still partying. We're still having fun. We're still unified. Like, it's amazing. So yeah, that's part of the reason too, that like, Jeffro is so appealing to me. That's why I say like, it mattered to me that he's Haitian. It's one of the other folks that I got to interview for the show was Danny Dan, who's also Haitian.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm already qualified for the Olympics, and like
first one too.
Yeah. And like, that's amazing to me. I want to see two Haitians. I want to see them both on the podium. I would think that would be extraordinary.
Yeah. That'd be monumental.
To see people who represent not only the culture as it is, not only the culture as we know it in America, but this deeper deeper thing, this like being, coming from a place that is so misunderstood and that is in fact so poor,
Yeah.
and to rise to that platform, like that's just beautiful.
So given the current socio-economic standard of Haiti and what just recently happened, which was the assassination of President Jovenel Moise and stuff like that, are you a little bit in tune with like kind of what's going on with how the new administration kind of stepped in and had the U.S. back them and just was like, yeah, this is the new government, y'all got to respect it? Like, what do you think about that?
I think it's like I've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
Like this isn't the first time
the
U.S. has involved itself in this way. I think it's good. I mean, I think it's like I feel hope around it. Part of that hope for me is that Smith Joseph, the kid that I fell in love with and remained friends with, one thing that is shocking to U.S. ears, especially American ears, especially, is the justice system in Haiti and the corruption that exists there.
Yeah.
People get locked up for nothing, for literally nothing. And I don't mean like for minor crimes. I mean for literally nothing. If you show that you have any connections to money, if you show any connections to American money, especially, you'll get locked up. And the only way out is to bribe your way out. And so my dear friend has been locked up now for 7 years. And
wow.
He's in a cell that is made for 8 people, and there are 18 of them in there. And the last time we spoke, he hadn't been out of that cell since November, and that was for 15 minutes.
Wow.
We are talking about absolute injustice, human atrocities.
Yeah. But you said for 7 years now.
Yeah.
So when
it got locked up in 2016.
So this is around the time of Aristide, was it?
No, it was like in the 90s and 80s and 90s.
Or
it was, I think Moise was in power
late 17.
Yeah.
Because they had this weird thing that happened with the election. And I think it was one of the first like fair election that they had. And Moise didn't come into power, or he won the election. I believe it was in 2016, but they had this whole big disagreement. The current parliament or power in play said like, no, like there's no way you didn't win. So they had another recount or revote. Like it was a full on election, and he won again in 2017. So he was supposed to serve his 4 years. And I know there's this big thing where they were like, oh no, your presidency is over in 2020. And he was like, no, that's not fair. Like I get to, serve my full 4 years. Y'all took 2016 away from me because you said I lost, but I won again, even with more numbers. And after that had happened, there was this, I think it was the biggest corruption with Haiti is probably the people in parliament, the people in power and whatnot. But
the police corruption,
oh man,
just trickles down.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I mean, I could tell you stories about with, police and my family over there in Haiti. But the thing is, the people in power is just kind of like, they kind of take this and they're like, all right, no, like we're going to run it our way. And apparently some of them even had, some of these mercenaries underneath them to like enact some of their visions and pretty much missions that they wanted to, carry out.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think Moise was a pretty good president. And the reason why I say that is because he was more of a businessman. Like he had I think he was a banana farmer before he came into power. So he was already doing okay for himself, but wanted like, better electricity, infrastructure, street roads. And he bought a lot of this stuff and started these projects before his assassination. And now with this new administration that came in, you have some of the people who had monopolies over the electrical infrastructures, meaning selling generators.
Yeah.
They saw that it was more profitable to do that rather than, building a dam that could power the full city or something like that. And they ended up destroying all the stuff that he made. And then they went back to saying, all right, we're going to sell our generators and, just it's a whole line of corruption. But then this new administration came in and they didn't even get voted in. They were just like, well, I'm taking power. And the U.S. just kind of just said like, all right, let's back you. That I think there's something very wrong with that.
Yeah. The hopefulness that I feel for me because of the sort of personal nature of it is just that like that the justice system will get, if you can get the gangs, because gangs are running like rampant in Port-au-Prince.
Yeah.
And making it impossible so like a lot of, like for Smith, I mean, they've come out and told him that he wasn't charged with anything. He's never seen a judge. He's never, been actually charged with anything. He's just locked up. And they've done all of the paperwork. It's like one signature away from releasing him, but they've been one signature away for months at this point. I mean, since like February. And so, but part of that is because like the judges can't go to work because the streets are not safe.
Yeah.
So, like, my hope is just that if we can at least get like some order established, I say if they can get some order established to where things can, the machine can start working
Yeah.
at some level, then at least my friend can get out of prison, which would be amazing. So.
No, I agree, man. No, I mean, you really been, it's cool to see that, you're taking your time with it, and, you've kind of been with you. I mean, you've been fully immersed in what's going on in Haiti, more than most Haitian, like people who've even been born here and, don't even get the opportunity to go back. But it's really cool to see that you're really involved in that way.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and people are not deserving of the circumstances that they've been given. That's not to say that I think wealth solves all problems. I don't believe that at all. I think in a lot of ways, Haitian people are much happier than Americans, but the basic needs of human existence, like they deserve those things, and some infrastructure would allow for that. And I remain hopeful. I remain hopeful that the situation there can return to a place where it's safe to travel there. It's a beautiful place that like should have phenomenal tourism, scene, and it has at different times with Royal Caribbean, especially, is bringing cruise ships in all the time. But I just, I stay hopeful for Haiti.
So lastly, kind of what's your preference on Haitian food?
Oh my God.
How do you feel about Haitian food?
I love Haitian food. Almost all Haitian food. There's only a couple of dishes that I really, really hate. Do you ever eat chin chin?
Chin chin.
Mai moulin is another thing.
Oh, mai moulin? Okay, yeah. I've had mai moulin. I hate it. It's not my favorite, I'll tell you that.
It's awful.
Yeah, my mom will tell you.
What it was is when I was in the orphanage, they see this, like, I was very skinny at the time. I also got very sick when I was there, so I lost a lot of weight. I was tall and skinny. And so the lady that would cook for the kids would always end up sending food over to me as well, even though I had food at the house. And so that chin chin, she would send me a bowl of it, like a massive bowl of it.
Wow.
They wanted to see it cleaned out. They wanted to put weight on me. And I was just like, stuff is disgusting.
They do it all the time.
I love, the fried plantain there is a favorite. Creole chicken's a favorite. The fried chicken in Haiti is amazing. Haitian spaghetti is amazing.
Yes.
So different from Italian spaghetti. I love it. Yeah.
The jonjon?
Remind me what that is.
The black rice?
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes they mix like some shrimp and stuff like that in it.
I never did seafood in Haiti. I had fish once or twice and I did not like it. I didn't. Yeah. We lived 2 blocks from the ocean, and like I saw the water that fish was coming out of. I just couldn't get that out of my head.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get that. But the jonjon is more like it's rice, but you probably put like, I don't know, they'll sometimes put like, I don't know what that green bean is. It's like you cook it with green beans and whatnot.
Haitian green beans are unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is a favorite. Pineapple in Haiti is amazing. We talked yesterday about sauce pois, which is like a bean sauce.
Yeah.
They make it a few different ways. Sauce pois is amazing.
On white rice?
Yeah.
Oh man, you know the dishes.
Oh yeah.
What about
so much.
What about bouillon? It's like a soup.
We would do pumpkin soup.
Okay. So yeah, jumoun.
And I love pumpkin soup to this day.
Wow. Okay.
I actually found someplace in the U.S. that we did pumpkin soup, and I couldn't believe that they had it, and it tasted very Haitian. We talked about pickles. Pickles is sort of a side, it's like a cabbagey condiment, like really spicy. I would eat fried plantain and pickles with every meal if I could.
That's how you're supposed to do it, along with grill. So it's like grilled pork and
Yeah.
yeah.
There was a hotel we used to go to that I would get that. It was really good. I also, for breakfast, they would do plantain that was like boiled in Creole sauce. And it looked disgusting. It's like this banana floating in oil, basically. But it's just unbelievable. It was so good. That was always a favorite. And then Haitians, man, like they've got it figured out. There were meals where they would just bring you like this big piece of like bakery white bread and a glass of, it's hot chocolate. It's not hot
I
chocolate.
know what you're talking about.
It's not like hot chocolate, like,
It's
Swiss
raw.
Miss. It's just chocolate that is hot, and it was unbelievable. That was always such a treat. But
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Man, that's so dope. Yeah.
I was dropping hints immediately of like, please tell your parents to have me over for dinner because I really need some Haitian food in my life. He is yet to deliver.
No, yeah. I mean, hey, man, we'll have to set you up with a plate. I know the Haitian community here pretty good. But yeah, man. Hey, Luke, appreciate you coming through. And you're doing great work, man. Like seriously, it's the work that you're doing right now. It's you're not seeing a lot of people do that, especially from the angle that you're approaching it.
Yeah.
So keep doing what you're doing, man. And
Likewise, I love this. I love this show. I love what you're doing. I think that the scene needs more of this, and so I'm rooting for you too, man.
hey, man, appreciate it. But y'all heard it here on the Hot Pot. Like, subscribe, and make sure you comment in the section below.